Hello and welcome back to Tennis Unfiltered with me, James Gray of iNews.co.uk and the iNewspaper. Just me tonight to look back at day 2 of the US Open Tuesday, where we closed out the first round. We got to see who were the true kings of fantasy tennis, where we lost yet more seeds and incredibly every British player won. This is Tennis Unfiltered. Yes, this is Unfiltered, where I can track down neither George nor Calvin, as occasionally happens during a full fortnight of a Grand Slam. I should congratulate Calvin on reaching the second round, which is technically a match that took place in tomorrow's podcast, but it has already happened, so I'm going to tell you about it today. Calvin will tell you about it in much more detail when I catch up with him. But yes, congratulations, Julian and Henry, for making it through to the second round of the US Open. They won 7-5, 6-1 over Will Blomberg and Steve Johnson. I think they are more than likely to now face the German pair of Krivets and Putz, assuming that they make it through their own first round tie, which I believe is tomorrow. So Henry and Jules will have a day of rest up on their opponents, which during US Open, when everyone seems to be getting ill and chucking their guts up, as someone put it to me the other day, probably quite handy. Although maybe that just gives you another day to get food poisoning. Who knows? Fingers crossed, everyone who's suffering that stomach bug that seems to be going around is able to get through it and doesn't have to retire from matches, which is, of course, the worst possible outcome. Ons Jabeur is someone who had been ill, but amazingly came through it, despite basically having been in tears on the Louis Armstrong court against Maria Osorio Serrano. She was having a blood pressure check. She looked all sorts of ill, but came through a 1-7-5, 7-6 against a very fine player. So hopefully she's able to recover in time for a clash with Linda Noskova, who is a junior Grand Slam champion from the Czech Republic. Probably a name to watch. So that wasn't who I was planning on starting with, but it struck me that people might be quite intrigued to know that Ons Jabeur was, to say the least, battling breathing difficulties because she's got the flu and she's also got a history of asthma. So yeah, pretty tough. But hopefully she can get herself fighting fit again, because obviously she's someone who has gone very well at the US Open before and also has quite a lot of points to defend. So pretty important for her that she's able to get herself back fit. It should be noted that it is extremely hot in New York. I was texting Mikey Hinks today. He was telling me how humid it is and how he was glad to be able to get out into Central Park and try and get some air, just get away from the city a little bit. Not easy conditions to play tennis in. I'm sure the ice towels and the air conditioning tubes and the bottles of sort of what always looks sort of like cloudy water, but I'm sure it's kind of lemon flavoured stuff. We'll be doing the hard yards today. I've absolutely no doubt about that. But looking back on Tuesday, it's really the Brits that I have to start with, to be honest, because there were a total of 6 Brits in action, and all of them won in straight sets. Jodie Burrage, Katie Bolter, Dan Evans, Andy Murray, Jack Draper, and Cameron Norrie. Now, in the context of Grand Slams, where most of our job as British journalists has been to point out how bad we are at tennis, it is refreshing to at least have one, even if it is just the first round, and there's a good chance that many of them will lose in the second round. It is good at least to have a little bit of positivity to be able to radiate for at least a few hours. I know positivity isn't always what we do on this podcast. I'd like to think we balance a bit of positivity and criticism, but credit where credit's due. I'm not really sure who the best win there is, to be quite honest. I mean, given his form, I'm always tempted to say Cam Norrie, because he's been playing so awfully this summer, but equally he was playing someone who, Alexander Shevchenko, he really should be beating every single time. And probably you say that the same in the second round, where he's got Yu Shu, I think I've said that right, who is from Taiwan, and he came through qualifying, and Norrie will be a big favourite in that match, so it would not be great if he was unable to make it through that. But maybe he just finds his feet. He's got a very open draw to begin with Talon Grexpor, who was one of 3 men's seeds to lose on Tuesday. Talon Grexpor, number 24 seed, lost to the very impressive Frenchman Arthur Fils, who just keeps picking up decent results. I know David Law of the Tennis Podcast is a huge Arthur Fils fan, I should say, not Fils. Oh, I never remember that with French. My A-level French deserting me here. I think it is Fils. But other things for people who don't know about him, he's 19 years old. He already has an ATP title to his name, which he won just before the French Open, to absolute acclaim. I don't know. I mean, there was a raucous reception when he won that title just the day before the French Open. Probably didn't actually do him very much good, because he then turned up to the French Open absolutely knackered and lost in 4 sets to Davidovich Fokina. But he is now, I would suggest, he is literally in the US Open on merit. Direct entry and into the second round on merit, where he will face Matteo Analdi, who came through after Jason Kubler retired injured. So, that the winner of that potentially plays Norrie. And you'd have to say you can't really ask for a better opening 3 matches. If you're trying to handpick your way through the draw, which I think Cam Norrie, in the form he's been in, probably needs to. The only slight worry is he might, play 3 relatively easy matches and then run into Carlos Alcaraz in the 4th round, and it's like, how do you make that step up? But I think he's probably got the mental game to do that, and the confidence of winning 3 matches in a row. I mean, that's something he's not done in a long time. I'm just trying to think when the last time he won 3 matches in a row even would be. I'm just cycling through. Crikey, I mean, I know he's had a bad year, but this is... I've got to... Here we go. Indian Wells. Yeah, of course. Indian Wells is the last time he won 3 matches in a row. So that is 5 months since he's done that. At the moment he's only won 1, and I'm maybe getting ahead of myself a little bit, but that is pretty significant, I would suggest. In that context, I think that's a pretty good win for Cam Norrie. Dan Evans has just had a classic Dan Evans year in some ways. He's had slumps, he's had a title, albeit there's not been that many of them. Just a comfortable straight set victory. Probably he was as surprised as anyone for all 7 Brits to come through the first round. So, pretty exciting for British prospects. I know Dan is a big supporter of British tennis. He's also a big critic, but the reality is that he is that because he really cares about British tennis and about success for British tennis players. So I'm sure he will actually be absolutely delighted by what they've managed to achieve. Don't get me wrong, Andy Murray's win was really good. It was a really good match to watch. Corentin Moutet, as I think I alluded to yesterday, or at least George did, is a very entertaining player. He does overstep the line. He's had a big fight with Dan Evans before, and he's not going to win a Grand Slam, but he's entertaining. He's a bit smaller, so he has to be a bit more innovative. He's a really good mover. And players like that tend to produce really good matches against Andy Murray because he's a creative player. He's able to put the ball into different areas of the court and kind of bring that best out of them. And he also likes to get involved in a scrap. And I think he enjoyed not quite winding Moutet up, but giving him the rope to hang himself with, as I think they say. And, he's brilliant at that. And it made for a really good match in the end. So, it was in straight sets, but I think it was a bit better than that, a little bit closer maybe. I know players always say this when they win in straight sets, it's closer than the scoreline says. But I really think it was closer than 2-5 and 3. He now plays Grigor Dimitrov on Thursday in the second round. We thought for a while it was going to be Alex Molchan, who is perennially referred to as the man coached by Marian Vida, who's Novak Djokovic's ex-long-term coach. He's also a decent player in his own right, and to be fair, I probably have mentioned that as well. He's always struck me as not the fittest player in the world, and maybe that came to bear when he was into a 5th set tiebreak against Grigor Dimitrov yesterday on court 7 of all places. It was probably the match of the day, I would suggest. It was an absolute thriller. Molchan took a 2-set lead in 2 tiebreaks, the first of which was 20 points long. And then Dimitrov roared back. He won the last 3 sets, 6-1, 7-5, and then, as I mentioned, the deciding tiebreak in the 5th, which he won 11 points to 9. I think Andy Murray won't have minded which one of them he faced, because tennis players are like that, but he certainly will have been glad to see that they had to spend the best part of 5 hours, 4 hours 40 it was in the end, they spent on court in that sweltering heat. And, Grigor Dimitrov isn't getting any younger. He's obviously a very fit man. I had the pleasure of spending 20 minutes with him at Wimbledon, just chatting. He's the same age as me, bizarrely. I think he's only about 2 months, something like that, older than me, giving away my age here again. But, I know, 32, if I play sport for 4.5 hours, I would struggle to recover in 2 days. So, I think Murray would be pretty delighted to have seen that result. Maybe he would have preferred to play Molchan, a lower ranked player, but Murray has beaten Dimitrov a lot. He leads their head-to-head 8-3. So, albeit they've not played since 2016, which is A, 7 years ago, and B, a long time ago in Murray years. That is before he did his hip, had hip surgery, I should say, before even the first one. But, he's won 5 of the last 6 in that kind of period, just before hip surgery. So he knows what it is to beat Grigor Dimitrov. I'll maybe get Calvin's take if I can, exactly how he's going to do that. But I think maybe in the kind of hot, bouncy conditions, he might think he can get the ball bouncing. Single-handed backhand struggles. I don't know. We'll see. But Katie Walters, Jodie Burrage both probably expected to win just. Big challenge for Jodie Burrage coming up against Aryna Sabalenka, which is probably where, you would expect that is where her US Open campaign ends, but who knows? Katie Walters playing Wang Yifan, which I think is a tricky old match, but we'll see how that goes on Thursday. Moving on, not moving on from the matches I've already talked about, but moving on to a slightly different topic. People who were watching the other day may have noticed that the umpire pulled a tablet out from under her chair because Corentin Moutet was convinced that he had not upped, if that makes sense. Basically, Andy Murray hit a drop shot. Moutet ran it down, and he got a racket on it before it bounced for the second time. And the umpire called not up, so Murray was on the point. And Moutet, as this is right now, requested a umpire review. VAR, as they're calling it. It's essentially what Premier League football fans will know as VAR, or really football fans in any league these days know well as VAR. And essentially, the referee gets a tablet out, or the umpire, I should say, gets a tablet out, watches it back, communicates with the producer through a microphone and headphone setup so that they can discuss, the various angles and what angles they need to see, and then makes a decision. Incredibly embarrassingly, the tablet wasn't working, the headphones weren't working, and therefore they weren't able to use it. The most ironic thing is that it was up on the big screen. The TV producer, who I understand is different from the umpire producer, had the footage of the incident up on TV, which actually showed the umpire got it right. But the umpire is not allowed to use that to make the decision. They're not allowed to look at that. So instead, she had to say, look, it's not working, so my original call has to stand. And, there are going to be teething problems. That's inevitable. Whenever you do something for the first time, could they not have, I don't know, maybe they haven't done enough testing of these things. It's a good idea, it's the right idea, it's going in the right direction. We had that farcical situation last year where, I'm trying to remember which Cherundolo it was. I think it was Juan Manuel Cherundolo. Got a ball up, and it was called good. Murray was furious about it, came up on the big screen. Cherundolo looked at it and went, yeah, fair enough, that wasn't up, and conceded the point. And Murray said it was a huge show of great sportsmanship. But, the umpire could not do that for them, even though the umpire would have seen the footage as well and seen exactly that he had got it wrong. Really, they should just say, well, if there's a big screen on the court, let the umpire use that. Because why wouldn't you? Kind of baffled. So what they do in rugby, of course, they get up on the big screen and just let the umpire watch there. I don't really know why they don't do that in football, because they think it'll incite crowds or something. As if it doesn't, if this crowds need any extra excuse to get incited, I don't know. But yeah, just to say the least, as the Press Association correspondent Andy Sims, who's out there, put it, yellow cards surely. Yes, I think that probably is a yellow card for the organisers. Fortunately, they can accrue as many yellow cards as they want, even Howard Webb won't send them off. So, bungle alert. Let's talk about the other seeds who went out yesterday. Probably no great surprises there. Karen Hatchinoff has been battling injury, and he was beaten in straight sets by Michael Moe, who, if you ever get a chance to watch Michael Moe, or if you're able to manoeuvre your way around Sky's court choice system, which incidentally I can't because I'm a Virgin Media customer, but that's a gripe that others may have. I've got Virgin Media with standard definition Sky Sports, and because I don't have HD Sky Sports, I can't access the multi-court coverage. And because I'm on Virgin Media, I can't get it on my laptop, so the only way I can get multi-court is by getting it on my teeny tiny phone, which I appreciate is a first world problem, but they've been pushing the multi-court coverage thing really hard. And it, I hate to make a comparison, it's bloody easy on Amazon. Not many things were. Once you'd found the tennis, trying to watch the match you wanted was relatively easy. It is not on Sky. I'd be interested incidentally to know what people thought of the Sky presentation so much. I know that means I'll only get the complaints, but I'd be interested to know what people's complaints are. Do you think their choice of matches on the main channel is all right? What do you think of the studio and the way they're using it? The way they're using the main channel, like throwing between matches. I'd just be interested to hear your thoughts. Let us know on email, tennisunfiltered@gmail.com, and I will do my best to read them out, as I always do. My own thoughts, kind of as I've alluded to, the multi-court thing doesn't work properly, which is pretty frustrating, to say the least. The presentation, I think, is okay. Like, the studio is not working perfectly. It's a massive studio, as I thought you probably gathered if you read my Inside Sky Sports tennis piece on the eye, which I'll put that in the show notes actually, because people might find it quite interesting, because it's all about kind of how they built it and how it all came together. They're using the Monday Night Football studio for people who watch football in the UK, and they've kind of rebuilt that, and they've actually had to work with some movement coaches to understand the space a bit better and to work out how to use the tablets while also talking, which I'm told is a really hard thing to do. Well, as someone who cannot do things while also talking, as you'll notice from some of the pauses in these solo podcasts, I'm in envy of anyone who can do it well. So, yeah, I'm not surprised they need someone to teach them how to do it. But yeah, I'll drop that piece in the show notes because people might get a kick out of it. And, that is my full-time job after all, my day job, as some people call it. But yes, Karen Hatchinoff, as I mentioned, lost to Michael Moe. And if you do get the chance to use your court selector to watch Michael Moe in the next round, okay, he's playing John Isner, and I never recommend people watch John Isner because it's a bit dull. But Michael Moe is an entertaining player. He seems like a really nice guy, comes across very well, had a good run in Australia earlier this year. So yeah, I would recommend you take the opportunity to go and watch that if you get the chance, or even if you are in New York on that match will be on Thursday. So I know at least one listener who's going to be there on Thursday. So maybe go and give it a go. Probably be on a reasonable. I'd probably be on a big court actually. It's 2 Americans, isn't it? But maybe it'd be on grandstand. So that is one I think that people can get onto with a ground pass. So maybe. We try and sneak into one of the big courts. It's evidently possible, absolutely. The other seed to go out, I've already mentioned Talon Rexfor, which is a real surprise. But Ugo Humbert going out as well, which is not such a surprise given his dire form of late. Lost 6-4, 6-2, 6-2 to Matteo Berrettini, who effectively becomes the number 29 seed and nicks Humbert's draw. And I know George, for one, is very intrigued by Matteo Berrettini's chances. He plays Arthur Rinderknecht in the next round, who's the big serving Frenchman. There won't be many long rallies in that, I suspect. But, that seems very winnable. And then Rublev or Monfils, who, again, Berrettini, when fit, will look at them and go, yeah, absolutely, why not? It's just in the conditions especially, and given the nature of his injury, it's sort of chronic ab problem that he's had. It's just about whether his body holds up. But, he could very easily find himself in a fourth round match against Hubert Hurkacz, for example, which I think he would think he's got a chance in. Again, be a pretty one-dimensional match, but I think he's got a shot. Let me just cover the women's seeds who went out yesterday. We mentioned Caroline Garcia, George and I, as someone who has been under a lot of pressure and has struggled to cope with it. And it's quite sad, actually, to watch someone who... I just love watching Caroline Garcia play tennis. It's a really entertaining brand of tennis that she plays. And, yeah, I mean, I think everyone enjoys watching her. So I will be really disappointed if she does not come back to the top of the game, because she's a cracking player, she's a decent talker. It's just you just got to hope that she makes it back. So yeah, not great, but congratulations to Wang Yifang, because that's a big win for her, and she's now into the second round as a qualifier. She's got Katie Bolter, who I think people will think is a match that Wang can win, quite frankly. She's going to be back up inside the top 100 in the world after this. She has been as high as 47 a few years ago. So, intriguing to see what she can do with that. And then the other seed to go out in the women's draw yesterday, Donna Vekic. I think it's a real surprise. I kind of had her labelled as one of the dark horses for this tournament. And then she's just been done in 3 sets by Satya Vikrey. So I think that might be a name I am saying for the very first time in my life. I can't pretend to know anything about her. She is 28 years old. She's from Miramar in Florida. She has been as high as 73 in the world 5 years ago. If anyone has anything interesting to tell us about Sasha Vikrey, then I would be interested to hear it, because just glancing through her record, I can't see any reason why all of a sudden she's playing quite well. So, good for her, I guess. View with excitement. Feels like a rubbish note to end the podcast on, because it's like I don't know what I'm talking about. But, it's important to admit when you've just been found out something you've never heard before and see what happens. I am aware the audio quality on this podcast is a little bit below quality. A few tech issues at this end. Normal service will be resumed tomorrow, when, of course, you will be back.